Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Jonathan Kane, and you're watching The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Jonathan, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's always great. The network is strong, and when you reach out and you say, hey, I'm looking for people to book, I love being able to promote different messages that need promoting, causes and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about Living Teal and what you guys are trying to do, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So Living Teal is the lifestyle umbrella underneath FAIR, which is Food Allergy Research and Education, which is the world's largest NGO in the food allergy space. And FAIR's mission is to improve the life and health of Americans living with food allergies and providing hope. And, we're the voice of the patient, right? And Living Teal, again, is the lifestyle arm. If you think about food allergy, which impacts 85 million Americans, so 1 in 4 just about, food is so central to everything we do. Most people eat 3 times a day. We eat at school, we eat at holidays. So it becomes kind of a lifestyle thing. So for all of the research that we do, education, advocacy things, people just live with it. And again, it's 85 million Americans. So what we wanted to do was give them an outlet through Living Teal with recipes and holiday tips and, how to manage this without it being a defining thing.
Yeah, boy, the holidays, perfect time to have this show because how many people had to have the gluten-free stuffing or all these different things that, and as we get better at medicine, we find out there's more of these things and they exacerbate one another. It's what a great mission to do that. Why did this even need to be done in the first place? If so many people have food allergies, there's got to be so much information out there. What hole do you guys fill?
It's so interesting you should say that. So I joined FAIR this past June, and I was aware of food allergies. I mean, it's hard to live in society without being aware of it, but the numbers are staggering. Again, 85 million impacted, 32 that live with life-threatening food allergies. So again, they have a peanut or some milk or some soy. They can go to the ER, and someone goes to the ER every 3 minutes with an anaphylactic reaction. My guess is that it's not front of mind for most people because most people with food allergies learn to live with it. They don't want to be a burden. I'm sure in their immediate circles or bubbles, their family and friends know about it, and you just sort of live with it. It's kind of like terrible analogy, but seatbelts,
Mm-hmm.
when it was the thing, like no one talks about seatbelts, but they save lives. And that's sort of what FAIR is here to do, is to remind people like we need to treat this seriously because without the education, it's easy to fall back into habit of, one bite won't hurt you when one bite could very much hurt you.
Yeah, or even for some allergies, like nut allergies in particular, the wrong kind of oil, just opening a bag of peanuts on an airplane can be life-threatening for some people.
Absolutely, and it is. Or going to a baseball stadium, which hopefully we can all do again this coming spring. Yeah, it's one of those things that I think because it's so ubiquitous that no one's talking about it. And the reason that I'm here specifically, why Living Teal's here, is to shine a light. We want to make this thing that is everywhere famous, so that people talk about it, respect it. There's obviously a bullying crisis with kids, but this is not a kid disease. Food allergy impacts young, old, black, white, male, female, gay, straight. It doesn't know a demographic. Adult onset food allergies are real as well, and they don't really get talked about at all. And those are crazy scary. The stories that I've heard since joining, people be out having shrimp for the 3rd time in a month, and then 2 hours later they're in an ER because the reaction could be 2 hours onset. It couldn't happen in minutes, but it can happen hours later. So, we're trying to, we don't want to make it scary. It shouldn't be scary. We want to, leave the fear at home, but keep the responsibility, and how we can celebrate. And it's little things like, we talk about the holidays. Thanksgiving just happened yesterday. Christmas is coming up. Potlucks are a big thing, right? People come to their friends' house or families and they bring their stuffing or whatever. And we had to all right, let's educate mom, dad, grandma, whoever it is, just one bite won't help, what cross contact is, again, how to self-advocate, things like that.
To be honest, and we all learn these things. I think this is what Gen X delivers to all of us is we start off with the position and then we go, back when I was a kid being gay, you could say faggot. You can say all kinds of words to people. I mean, the N-word wasn't the N-word. It was actually, a derogatory thing people shouted at each other. And then the Gen X folks like me, we came along. We're like, hey, we can do better than that. Just like with people who have mental disabilities, it's not only have we embraced them and put them on TV as a community, we've also said, you can have jobs. Like there's jobs that people with a variety of disabilities can do. That's all happened in these last 30 years. And so I say all that because I'm completely part of this transition of ick, I don't like that, I don't know it, to, hey, whatever, man, I'm awesome. You're awesome. We're all awesome together. So this food allergy thing at my core, right? My initial animal response is I don't give a damn if you're allergic to peanuts or not, or sesame oil or what's that got to do with me? I'm just throwing a party. And that rejection, the only way I know how to fix that is through like socializing these things and saying, hey, this is really, I carry an EpiPen in case somebody misses something because I can't miss. I mean, I don't have to carry an EpiPen anywhere, So talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's funny, you mentioned mental health, and I think that whole no stigma movement, early 2000s, was huge to recognize that, again, and I don't know the statistics with depression, but it's pretty, again, ubiquitous. And with food allergies, there is a stigma that we need to eliminate from society, because you shouldn't be embarrassed to say out loud to your waiter or waitress, is this cooked in peanut oil? Was this marinade on this barbecue made with soy or sesame? And obviously, the owner of that restaurant is incentivized to make sure you don't get sick. You as the customer are incentivized. But again, I don't want to raise trouble. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want them to spit in my food or whatever it is. We need to eliminate that completely. And I'll tell you a terrible but real story, which is one of my very good friends has lived with a shellfish allergy. And I didn't know it. We've been out to eat 100 times.
Right.
And when I got this job, he was like, oh, that's interesting. I've got a shellfish allergy. I was like, how did I not know? He's like, I don't want people looking at me different. And you're like, I understand, obviously, but again, part of what we're doing here at FAIR and Living Teal is to completely normalize it, take the stigma out completely, and have people not just advocate for themselves, advocate for their family, their friends. We don't want to live in a society without milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, etc. We just don't want to be so kind of flippant about it. It's very serious for some people. And we need to treat that with respect and not make them feel different or other than. Again, we've got to give voice to that patient that doesn't want to feel like a patient. They just don't want to. They don't want to go into an anaphylactic reaction because you weren't being serious enough with what they have.
There's I like to turn the camera around and look at things from a different angle. And if you were to jump cut to 15 minutes later when they go into anaphylactic shock and you're having to race to find the person's purse to give them the EpiPen so they can inject themselves, and they say, oh my God, was there peanut oil when you fried the turkey? Like, yeah, why didn't you tell me? I would have used any other kind of oil. Like, just tell me, you would say that, but you might not say that before. Realize, yeah, I'm cooking the turkey. Just say thanks, like your attitude can change if you see someone in desperate, physical crisis. It's when you think about it in that way. And then also you think about like folks who come out to their parents and they're terrified to do it. And then the parent is like, first off, I already knew, or whatever. But that jump is so hard for the person doing it. Same thing with allergies. Like, I just don't want to be a bother. I was on this ridiculous eating program for a while. And I'm like, can I get an omelet? Can I only get one yolk in it? Because today is one yolk day. And the waitress is great about it. She's like, I don't feel bad about it. It's fine. We're all on some kind of eating program, But these things that allow us the grace to be graceful, I think are really important in how we approach things. Because, 1 in 3, tens of millions, scores of millions of people that have these situations, I don't account for it on a day-to-day basis because it doesn't really matter to me. That's your job. You've got a gluten intolerance. That's your job, not my job. But some of these things, they're a lot more, Oh,
1,000%. Luckily, food allergies impact so many, and most people that have them, it's not life-threatening, oh my God stuff. But it is for enough. And we talk about the haves and the have-nots at FAIR. The haves are the people that have witnessed or had their own anaphylactic reaction out in the wild. And they take this, as you would imagine, incredibly seriously. Again, it's like if you've never known someone with, X, Y, or Z, it just becomes this thing in your brain, or you've heard Jimmy Fallon make a joke about it or whatever. Jimmy Fallon made an allergy joke at the beginning of the summer. It was a whole thing. It didn't bother me, but there are a lot of people that were very deeply offended by it, and I understand. But again, once you've seen that anaphylactic reaction, suddenly it's very difficult to ever wipe it from your brain. You'll only see like, I need to be, take this seriously. And again, the advocacy goes to both the patient, but also just the family. And I don't mean the immediate family, I mean like society. It doesn't take a ton of work for us to just sort of say like, hey, do you have something? Or just to be vocal and like, this was cooked in this kind of oil. That's why labeling is so important.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I keep going back to what I don't know about all these things and how much I just don't regard it and how prevalent these things are. It's bananas. Someone in our family circle has a severe nut allergy, and another person has just allergies in general. So they're allergic to, like, the list of things they're not allergic to is shorter than but I literally never account for it. And a lot of the moms in our group, they account for the nut thing because they've already doing it. So they've taken a lot of that load off of us. But, tomorrow night there's a Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. exhibition fight. I'm going to buy pizzas. I haven't for 1 second considered anybody's intolerances or, and what a jerk, right? Like, I've not even considered this thing. And now I have to send a text out and say, does anybody have any food allergy I need to be aware of? And it's the simplest thing, but I don't want to do it, but I have to do it because I'm not a dick.
Well, I mean, look, give yourself some slack. I think that I imagine the people that you're inviting over, you've eaten around them before. They probably haven't vocalized. But yeah, it's probably a good opportunity at this point to be like, did I miss something? I grew up in a Jewish community, and it was definitely like, is this family kosher? Because my family wasn't, and I literally shut down my school because I brought a ham and cheese sandwich in kindergarten, and they're like, you can't do that, buddy. But, we didn't know. And it wasn't, until I had friends that were like, you can't do this, or please don't. Yeah, I would say it's good on you to have that thought to like send that text out, and hopefully moving forward with like the Evites of the world, it'll be automatic check buttons, right? Like, do you have food allergies? Make it easy. Again, ideally through the work that we're doing at Fair and Living Teal, we're going to eliminate the stigma to a point where you don't even have to ask, because they're going to go ahead and say, hey, FYI, I have a wheat allergy. Can you order me a gluten-free pizza?
Right. Yes. And I would absolutely do that. I would even go as far as to order their own personal pizza so they would have it. Because of course, you want to be a good host. I was just thinking, my friend Ron is also Jewish, but he's the kind of Jewish where I'm like, hey, I'm making fillets, come over, I'll give you one. And I don't even think about it again, because, that's the kind of guy I am. And he gets there and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to tell you, I cooked these things wrapped in bacon. And he's like, I'll just take the bacon off. It's like his version of what worked for him was very doable, and I'm like, are you sure? Like, I'd make you something else. It's a funny thing.
We've definitely found in our audience that a vast majority are cool. They're like, I get it. We're just trying to live our lives too. There are definitely some hyper vocal, like, I can't just take the bacon off or whatever the thing is.
Right.
And we got to cater to all of them, right? We got to cater to the hyper vigilant, and the super loose. It's funny. My head of marketing, she has allergies. Her kids have allergies. And she's like, I'm not going to be the most vocal Karen out there, right? I'm not going to be the person that's just making so much noise. Like, I'll do my thing. But then again, I respect her. And I also respect the people in our world that are the noisemakers. And we need them. Society needs a balance of both, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I'm glad that you're doing this work. Let's talk a little bit about your aspect of this work, because your background is incredible. And obviously they picked the right person for the job, but talk a little bit about your experience and then why this makes you, particularly qualified to create this awareness and this normalcy of accepting the food allergy thing and driving people to Fair. By the way, everybody, look on the page if you're on the live side and take a look at the bottom on the screamer down there. And also you can go to their YouTube page, which is FAANPAL on YouTube, and you can get there. Talk a little bit about your background, if you would, Jonathan, because it's impressive.
Well, I appreciate that. And who ever would have guessed I would land at foodallergy.org.
Yeah.
I spent 22 years making television. I started my career in 1998 at MTV. Still have my MTV News Cube in the background. I keep it in every Zoom shot. Yeah, I did documentaries and game shows and dating shows and shows that I didn't tell my own parents I was making because it was embarrassing, because it was bottom of the barrel stuff. But then I moved through my career through Fremantle, who do American Idol, Got Talent, Family Feud, Price is Right, Let's Make a Deal. Sold a bunch of shows there. Was a showrunner at Discovery Networks, working on, all sorts of things. The BBC. I always forget about the BBC. And what's interesting is storytelling is storytelling, and connecting humans to humans is an important part of media, right? And the training that I had in the field for years as going back to when I was a PA, all the way up to a showrunner and the development exec, was telling emotionally pulling stories. Even if it was a game show, you're still watching a human on a ride, right? When I teach TV still, I tell my students, every story, scripted, unscripted, short form, long form, podcast, you're taking someone on a journey. There's going to be an obstacle for your character. You've got to have them relatable. They've got to make choices so that you can be vicariously along the ride as an audience member. But that emotional connection, I think, is what I learned so specifically making TV shows. And so when FAIR came along, they're like, we need to reach 85 million Americans that have this, that are impacted by food allergies. But we got to do it in a way that's not scientific. You can't connect to people by talking facts. You can't connect to people with statistics and just say every 3 minutes or 85 million. So how do you get them to care? How do you get them to activate? Well, there's a couple of levers you can pull, right? You can pull the scary lever, which is not my tactic by any means. I'd much rather pull the we're all humans, let's have a big hug together and embrace each other and celebrate life.
Yeah.
So that was my goal, was to put a face on food allergies. And not just your Steve Carells and Bill Haders and Kelly Clarksons, all three of which have food allergies. They're not going to, spend too much time connecting. But what about the real moms, the real kids? I just shot an amazing My Food Allergy Story, which is one of our series on Living Teal channel, which you can go to at livingtealchannel.com. And it's amazing 11-year-old girl out of Wisconsin who had her first anaphylactic reaction at 9 months and has turned her young life into advocacy, because she literally had people she's a dairy allergy, throwing cheese at her in school. And you think about that, this sweet, cute little blonde girl getting cheese thrown at her. All right, your face, you tell your story. I'm sure that there's another little girl out there, or a mom or a dad or a grandma, that's going to feel emotionally pulled and then activate on it. And what does that activation look like? Well, it could be you're going to donate $10 to this food allergy nonprofit, because our money goes right into research to end suffering food allergies. Or maybe you're just going to be a little bit more sensitive when you're at a restaurant, or when one of your kids' friends comes over and they can't have something, and you knew that, and you made sure they had popsicles that they can eat. One of our good friends is Shannon Miller, the gymnast from the 90s, and she's one of our faces. She does not have food allergies, but her son's best friend does. And she was telling me, the first time he came over, the kids were all having, a movie night and popcorn and popsicles, and she didn't think about it. The popsicles had dairy in them. So the next time she was, for sure to have some non-dairy, dessert treats as well. And then the kid felt more welcome. It's a beautiful snowball effect that is frankly so easy to do once you crack the door open.
These heartfelt stories, I'm a big believer in this, and people on the show already probably know what I'm about to say, but I worked a lot in combat zones, and if you measure effect, you'll lose, but if you can create an affect, if you can get that response to stimuli, you got a chance to tell your story and get people to pay attention to it. You, like I said, you could say, we've put out, the standard government, we have a pamphlet, but no one's picking it up and reading it. You can have 1 million pamphlets, but if you get one person to identify with what happens on an airplane, right before the pandemic really kicked off and you could still kind of fly without a mask, someone and I, we flew together somewhere, and this person had maybe a light seizure and passed out, and it was terrifying, and I felt utterly hopeless. Luckily, no harm, no foul. Everything worked out just fine. Didn't have anything have to happen, but man, just that experience alone, it's you just never know when something is going to happen,
Absolutely. That's, again, part of our mission, is to give voice to the patient, but just if we can educate people in a compelling way, I can tell you from my time at Discovery specifically that, getting information across was super important. And it could be, how many cc's in this engine or whatever it was. But if we could do it in an entertaining way, you didn't feel like school, and Discovery was masterful. And they still are. I'm no longer there. They're still masterful at educating without it ever feeling like class. And I think that's really, key. Again, if I can just get trigger those mirror neurons. Oh, you look like me. You sound like me. Oh, that's an interesting story. Suddenly, it becomes real easy to convert you into someone that, again, just cares. We're not asking much from our audience other than to just care a little bit, pay attention a little bit. And again, it's not rocket science. I mean, don't tell our scientists that because they think it's rocket science. The ones that are doing the real Lord's work of trying to end food allergy. But from my side, in the awareness side of things, like I can just get people to care a little bit and not be afraid to speak out.
Right.
Yeah, it's not so much. Again, it's funny you bring up being in the combat zones. That's real stuff right there. We're talking about restaurants and supermarkets here.
Yeah, but just as dangerous. I mean, you go into anaphylactic shock, you're going to need some attention real fast, either self-help or first aid of some kind. I mean, it's no joke.
I believe that's funny. Not funny at all, but I recently did a pilot at Fort Irwin, and I was shocked to learn how many civilians live on base in the middle of the Mojave Desert, and how they had, I think it was 2,000 pets on base. We were doing a show about the veterinarians, and I was thinking, like, I wonder if they have access to not hypoallergenic, but allergy-friendly foods. Do they have gluten-free flours there? Because there must be people on base, maybe not the enlisted, but the spouses, the kids, and they statistically they're there. And I remember when I was shooting on base thinking, well, there's the PX, and there was a Popeye's chicken, but like, are there options for the food allergy family? And I don't know that there were. So it's a smaller mission of mine, but I do want to make sure that all of my military brothers and sisters are always safe with access to clean food.
There's a funny thing. The military is so diverse and so accommodating to that diversity, but it is a big bureaucracy, right? And so they're absolutely, and I don't have to know specifically, I just know how these things work. There's absolutely meals for a variety of I don't know, addendums, I guess you would call them, right? I'm Jewish, I'm Orthodox, I'm all these things, including food allergies, and you may have less options, but it's like, hey, we're going to go to the field. You would go to your first sergeant and say, First Sergeant, I have the following allergies, or hopefully your NCO would do it, but it's really your responsibility. I need to make sure that there's a box of MREs for me to eat. And then the first sergeant's going to look at you like you're crazy, and then ask you to prove it. Some first sergeants would, not being unfair to first sergeants, but if you take those steps, they'll absolutely accommodate you. If you're a civilian who's going out to do like a training with these people and they're feeding you, you absolutely can say to them, these are the things, but it's awfully helpful to have a note from a doctor. It's awfully helpful to have a site like FAIR, or Living Teal, whichever site you go to. I guess they're connected, but that is an organization that's programmed to go, oh, okay, yeah, we need to account for that. You're right. That's fair. And it's likely to reject you at first and require you to jump through a hoop or two. And outside of that, I mean, if you work at a tech company and you say, I have this very particular food allergy, nobody can have trail mix in here because I can't have peanuts anywhere within 100 feet of me, that's going to take some doing,
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here, and if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
If you work at a tech company and you say, I have this very particular food allergy, nobody can have trail mix in here because I can't have peanuts anywhere within 100 feet of me, that's going to take some doing,
Yeah, it's interesting to mention that. I've got many friends all over Hollywood, and one of them, many actually, at Netflix. And in their lobby, there's a snack room, and it's awesome, honestly. But again, last time I was there was before I was working in the world of food allergies. It didn't dawn on me, but now I'm like, that is a vector. Like that zone.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Has literally trail mix in a thing. It's got cereal in a thing. And again, they're pretty nice treats. But if you happen to be affected by food allergies, like imagine you going in there for a pitch and it's the big moment.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of that peanut dust gets on you. I'm not suggesting that Netflix needs to,
Yeah.
But it's just something that until you start thinking about it, you're not thinking about it. And it's a real thing.
What is Living Teal? What does that mean? Why the color teal?
predates me. Teal is one of the official colors of food allergies.
Okay.
I guess a lot of various
That's their
disease groups.
ribbon of choice or whatever.
Everyone's got a thing, exactly. We share it with ovarian cancer, I've learned, which is fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun at all for anybody in that case, but yeah, so teal is the color. And you'll notice Food Allergy Awareness Month and Food Allergy Awareness Week. In this case, it's this May 10th. There'll be a lot of food products that'll turn teal. It's a signifier to an audience that's aware. So when you start seeing teal specifically in like your Whole Foods or I guess more higher end markets, because that tends to be where that product group tends to go. There's a good chance that it is allergy friendly.
You can
And
get it. I mean, you're a
Teal is
showrunner. You can do anything in Hollywood. I mean, you've done so many things. You've connected to zillions of people. Why this? I mean, like, why is this important for you to do it? What called you to it?
Honestly, I love the challenge of it. And the one genre of producing I've never done previous to this was food shows. And I've got good buddies at Food Network, and I've been trying to get things in there. And it's weirdly enough, food TV programming is such an insular world that was hard even for me to break into it. So when this came around, it's like, oh, you get to create a channel and make food content, which I desperately wanted to do. It was a challenge. Like, can I pull this off? And I'm very proud to say, if you go to livingtealchannel.com, you'll see some videos with Chef Leslie Durso, Chef David Rose, Ali Khan from Cooking Channel, and they're proper stand and stir cooking segments that I think are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
It's a challenge, but it's an important challenge. Do you do other projects in addition to this then? Are you like working on features or something else?
I always have a couple irons in the fire. Hopefully my boss isn't directly yes, I've been working on both a documentary and a feature based on the same subject matter with the Coast Guard, actually, for the last 5 years. And it's a pretty amazing story. Turn of the century, a guy named Mike Healy was basically runaway slave, the turn of the century, became a merchant marine and became a captain in the precursor of the Coast Guard.
Yes.
And his story is
ridiculous.
Epic. It's one of the best stories I've ever heard. So I got the life rights to that. And weirdly enough, when I was at Discovery, a lot of my Alaska shows had people surviving on reindeer.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I found out through Captain Mike Healy that those reindeer are not native to North America. They came over from Siberia because he brought them over to save the native population of Alaska, which is such a cool little piece of history that is basically forgotten.
And one of the only times something like that works. Normally it's like, and then I brought over kudzu.
Exactly.
Then we brought rabbits to Australia. I'm like, no.
We got the invasive cane toads as well.
Yeah.
No, it's an interesting story. So yeah, that's been going on. But the world of making features is the long, winding road.
Yeah. We have people that make movies, indie films a lot, because I like to celebrate what they do because it's just so impossible. And when they're young, they're just like, yeah, we asked for some money. We put some shots together and we made a movie. And I'm like, you don't get how hard it is to do. Like, you did it because you're audacious, but man, and good for them for doing it. I'm celebrating what they're doing, but yeah, any movie is a miracle just to get everybody to say, yeah, the timing. Oh my God, it's so hard.
I mean, considering any movie of any merit has 15 different production partners at some level, to get them to give up ownership or editorial control even a little bit, it's a miracle that anything ever gets made. I will say that. But I also love the idea of the audacity of youth. I sold my first show at 22. Because I didn't know that you needed an agent and yada, yada, yada. I literally just walked into an office. I mean, it happened to be at Viacom, so I could walk into that office. I'm like, can we do this show? And they're like, yeah, we can do that show. It's amazing. I actually sold the first 2 shows I ever pitched, and then I didn't sell another show for the next 7 years. It turns out it's really difficult, and I just got really lucky twice.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a long and winding road. One of these days, I'll get my movie and the documentary on the side of it made as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, what a neat thing to be able to do. And in this time of, I don't even know if multimedia is even the right term anymore, because yes, like in terms of etymology, it's the right term, but it's just multimedia, the way it's been used, it's completely smashed. You can make a YouTube channel, you can push that stuff out onto Vimeo or I mean, you can get your stuff put on Amazon and truly like take the multimedia and then do multimedia nodes off of that and then create all these points of brilliance where someone can find you and then get to what they need to get to. And I think about like that mom, who finds out that their infant has food allergies and they're like, oh my God, I have never thought about this. What am I getting? And it's overwhelming. All it is something you have to manage. And as a mom, they'll figure it out because it's manageable. But what you're able to do with this, I just think it's remarkable.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because I have a 20-year-old daughter. And what I learned from her directly was the search bar for millennials and Gen Z is YouTube. It's not Google.
Right.
And if you Google, well, now actually, if you Google food allergies or living teal, we pop up. But prior to me showing up, I'm happy to pat myself on the back, we didn't. It's like people want to see, again, those mirror neurons. How do I deal with this? Tell me a story. Show me how to cook. I'm never going to make muffins again. No, you can make muffins again. Here's how.
Yeah.
You don't need the top 9. It's more difficult for sure without any of the top 9 allergens. But yeah, that was, again, part of the challenge and beauty was I wanted people to, in this amazing landscape that is cluttered with media, make some content that breaks through, that's sticky enough, magnetic enough, noisy enough, but still educational.
Yeah.
That you'll actually hook an audience. They'll watch more episodes. And again, ideally learn a little something along the way.
Yeah. I mean, that ideally that would be great. I'm going to put the link in again here and just update it because I got a link, but I want to make sure this is the best possible link for everybody who's trying to go to this thing. You can
always send people just to foodallergy.org.
Yeah.
It's our hub.
Yeah, for sure. Foodallergy.org. And then also here's the YouTube channel again. So get more at YouTube at boom. The idea of recipes is great. Being able to say, here's how we do dolma when you have a grape leaf allergy or whatever it is. Because we cook in a certain A to B pattern. We usually have 20 dishes that we go make, and they're our go-to when you try something new like Acapulco Delight that my cousin makes. I make that once every other year or something like that. But to be able to bring in these other ideas, it's so easy. Just like all this new cooking we had to do because of COVID. Like I didn't even think about using grape leaf or all these ideas. I had kangaroo once. It tasted fantastic. If I had never had a steak before that, if it had been the first mover in my mouth in terms of meat products, I'd absolutely love it. It was a little weird because I'd already had cow, but there's not a thing wrong with eating kangaroo, and so there's all these different ways to make things. Like I love spaghetti squash. I mean, you don't have to give me a noodle. If I can't have noodles, I would be totally fine. I love it. I think it tastes great. But I never knew to do that until like I saw a cooking show and they're like, here's a healthier option. And I'm like, I love vegetables. I love spaghetti squash. I'm in.
Yep. That, again, as a foodie myself, and, let's be real, I consume so much food media. It is, again, it's been my jam. That's why I wanted to produce it. I love the challenge. So we got these amazing chefs and they're like, here's another thing. I have a whiskey blog, right? I love whiskey. And my friend Leslie, who's a plant-based chef, is like, you can do a whiskey sour with chickpea water, aquafaba. And I'm like, gross, no thank you. Like, give me egg whites. And she's like, just try it. And of course I did. I'm like, now this is amazing. I can make vegan whiskey sours, or really pisco sours, pick a sour. And it tastes amazing. It doesn't taste like chickpea at all. And you're like, I learned something. Now for the rest of my life, I will always have this recipe in my brain. It's super easy to do.
Yeah.
And that's just one of a dozen, just little hints and tricks to be more flexible, depending on who my audience is when I'm cooking. So again, if I have someone that can't have dairy, I know how to make a ton of things thanks to, again, really little substitution tricks. And again, once you learn them, it's like a cheat code in life.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And it's like chickpeas. You can do a lot of things with chickpeas you never realize, as long as you're not allergic to them, right? And you can even make hummus. You don't have to have sesame oil in hummus. You can make it with other ways and have it be fantastic.
Yep. You can make pesto with pumpkin seeds, and who figured that pesto, because of pine nuts, was such a triggering food for so many people, but it really is. And to be like, it was actually the first recipe I put up was a a pesto with a pumpkin seed from Ali Khan, and it's delicious. It's not exactly the same, but I wouldn't kick it out of bed. I don't know why I'm eating pesto in bed, but whatever. I'm not going to kick it out of bed.
Hey, whatever.
No judgments. Exactly.
I know. I like pesto. How the heck do you guys make any revenue doing this? I mean, obviously you have to, you weren't cheap. You can make a lot of money doing a lot of things in Hollywood. How in the heck do they afford you? How does this work?
That is a fantastic question. Our our fundraising apparatus is mostly through private donors, some grants, and some corporate partnerships. But as a nonprofit, as an NGO, it's X percentage of every dollar goes to research. I don't know the exact number. It's certainly more than goes into my pocket.
Yeah.
I can't tell you. I've seen our annual budget, and what I do is the smallest fraction. You know, so they're doing something right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, galas are really hard to do in fundraising dinners and stuff. But I imagine there's some of that happens with this. Can you talk? Do you have any knowledge at all about the progress that's being made on a given food allergy or in general? Is that something you're aware of?
I mean, not in any super specifics because I'm not a scientist, but we've got 50 clinical network partners that are doing research all around the country, Stanford, Northwestern, other places. There's been amazing developments in the world of peanut allergy with therapeutics, something called OIT, which is oral immunotherapy. We're working right now with Broad over at MIT on the gut-brain axis. So there's all microbiome research, which again, if they can crack that nut, I shouldn't say crack nuts. People get mad at me for that. But if we can work through that, that can be, a true game changer. Again, with like pills that can mitigate allergies.
Yeah.
The other piece of research that we're spending a lot of time and money on is early introduction. And Pete, I don't know if you've got kids or not, but I can tell you again, I've got two. My 12-year-old and 20-year-old, when they were both born, we were told avoid all of these allergens. Basically it's breast milk or formula, bananas, whatever, little things until, avoid strawberries and peanuts like they're the devil.
Right.
And we've done studies, we've been partnered with studies, Leap, Seed, others, and it bears out that if, it's so obvious, right? If you give babies, as their immunity is growing, a variety of foods, their bodies don't see them as alien invaders.
Right.
So it accepts them. So we've been able to, through some of these studies, prove out the efficacy of early introduction. So we're doing a lot. I mean, weirdly enough, if we're successful at early introduction, we'll put ourselves out of business, which I think is probably a good thing for the world.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of research in that regard with babies.
Yeah. Interesting. What have you picked up along the way? Like, you go into this, okay, I know how to make a TV show. I can make you, that's easy. But what if you I had no idea. And that's a lot more challenging, or that's a lot more interesting than I'd ever realized.
I mean, if I'm being completely candid, Pete, the challenge is we've had an amazing audience on like my holiday programming. We've had a great audience on a handful of webinars here and there, a lot of stuff with the babies. My stand and stir cooking shows, they've not broken through an audience. And I'm shocked considering I've got talent with crazy audiences, and getting people at home to convert to watch videos is more difficult than I expected. So that is definitely eye-opening, considering how good the content is.
Right.
Which, I guess the lesson learned is keep at it and keep doing better, right? It's like putting out a podcast. You just keep churning them out. The audience will be there as long as the quality is great. Our quality is fantastic. I've also learned that if you talk to people, food allergy has impacted everyone at some level. Everyone knows someone. And almost everyone across the board is excited to learn how they can help, which again, interesting, maybe not surprising if you saw how successful like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was. And statistically, ALS impacts far fewer people than food allergies, but they were able to raise $250 million with that Ice Bucket Challenge because when people care, they activate. So maybe not surprising, but it's been a nice eye-opening moment to see how responsive our audience has been.
There's another accelerator in that too. Like, yes, the Ice Bucket Challenge, you don't realize that, actually the dude that started that, his ALS fund, he just died just like a week ago. But it also gets you audience in Congress, and it's notable. Like there's someone from the ALS world. She passed. She was actually in Hollywood. She worked with Renee Zellweger and a bunch of other people. You know, she was, I think she was an agent, and she picked up ALS and she passed on. But all of a sudden now you get really heavyweights that are passionate because this person not only helps manage their career, but has become dear to them. I mean, very close. And that also gets you access to more things. And with the prevalence of food allergies, it would just seem like at some point, yeah, there's going to be a tripping moment where everybody, I mean, I cooked last week. I made goulash. Didn't come out great. It tasted good, but it wasn't very goulashy to me. But I used my laptop in the kitchen on YouTube, you know, as I did it. I had a website and a video, and I did that. And I know that that'll happen more often, but I wonder what it is about going to food. Maybe Food Network is just such a magnet that it's hard to get people off of that. I don't know.
I think that's definitely part of it. And I also think we're re-educating our audience on what we're providing. You know, up until recently, we provided mostly educational resources. It was not a lot of lifestyle stuff. Right. So as we grow, and I am very proud to say that our metrics are, I'm patting myself on the back. Like our engagement rate on Instagram's up 600% in 3 months.
Yeah.
Like they're finding us because we keep delivering it. And it's a little bit that field of dreams. If we build it, they will come. And they are. Yeah. You know, every video does better than the one before. But I'm used to millions and millions and millions of people watching my shows. And now I'm like excited when I get 50,000 views.
Which 50,000 people, by the way, paying attention to you in any kind of social media is great. You know, it drives me bonkers. Like when I watch videos that people make, and I love that they're creating and they've got an audience. I'm not saying anything about that. But like when it's like this teenager's response to watching Tom Sawyer from Rush, and you're like 1 million hits, like they just discovered a 40-year-old song. You know, they like hold their face together like that's what people want. Or you see, and this kills me. And this kills me because I've got a degree in TV radio, right? So I used to get yelled at to get my editing improved. That's how they taught people they yelled at you. But I watch these video edits with jump cuts and breaking all the rules. I saw a 180 rule break, and I'm like, what are you? How in the world is this accepted? It drives me bananas, Jonathan.
I'm completely with you, but I give all of the YouTubers a big old get out of jail free card. When I watch proper network television or Netflix or Amazon and I see the 180 getting violated, jump cuts, bad edits, bad sound design. Sorry, the most watched limited series in Netflix history, apparently, per the news today, was The Queen's Gambit.
Yeah,
which is lovely. They break so many rules of sound design in that show that I want to, and I have audibly been like, no, that's not how a piano sounds in that room. Which makes watching television with my wife very annoying for her. But yes.
Yeah. You know what? I had one of those, and I love The Crown. I've been watching it. I watch it like a mechanic, but I also watch it like an audience member. And Diana and Charles get off an airplane, and they come down, and there's, 50 people around there. A crowd, but, the sound that they put in was like, Rah! And I'm like, there's 50 people there. They didn't make that big of a sound. And I was like, how in the world did that get by? How does that get by somebody?
It's one of my favorite questions, knowing how difficult it is to get anything done. You're like, all right, from the PA up to, internal, again, The Crown, for example, must have 4 or 5 production companies underneath it. Like people saw it and were like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
A show that I had sold a pilot of but didn't end up going to series was, it doesn't matter what it was called. It was a look at the music videos at the MTV Music Video Library, because we would collect 20 new ones a week. We'd only air like 4 though. So there were 16 that had been shot, approved through MTV as well to get into the library. And they were the most ghastly, like, what is this?
Yeah.
And there were hundreds of them. Again, this is all pre-YouTube, but it's shocking to me. Like, how did this get made?
Yeah, it's
and how can I not make my movie? If you can make that POS, how can I not make my movie?
Yeah, exactly. I want half of the money, and I can make something that's at least that bad, if not probably better. Like it's. I get to watch a lot of indie films, and I'm not being overly critical of them, but there is a difference of like that big budget, that continuity thing, like shot for shot. Like let's say there's, I don't know, 100 shots that are taken in this movie, and the quality of each shot can be dramatically different in an indie movie. You know, they don't have a budget to get all of the like their lighting to be exactly right, you know, and move in a way that makes sense. So anyhow, I guess when you get behind the curtain, you just get to see a lot more things, and it makes it harder to enjoy a movie or someone's success on YouTube. I'm happy they're doing it, and I love that they've got a career doing it, and hopefully they'll have me on their show to help out. But it is exasperating when you try to see.
I completely agree. With equally exasperating on the flip side is, again, I teach at a high school, a filmmaking magnet here, and every one of my students has an iPhone or a Galaxy, so they have a 4K recording device in their hand.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, I need to, do X, Y, and Z to like start making my thing. It's like, what are you waiting on?
Yeah.
Like, you've got an audience of 0 already. The worst thing that happens is you do something and it's not good and no one watches it. So you're starting at the ground, like, go make.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I am Gen X and I grew up with a literal VHS strappy camera system, editing VHS to VHS before I got into film school, physically cutting film. Like, making TV and movies was really hard when I was coming up, and it's so easy for people today. Like just go do it.
Yeah,
just do it.
Like the Chiron machine and what we were stuck with. You know, I programmed some purple. You didn't program anything. You just pushed a button. It was already in there, and you only get purple. You only get blue. You're like no. So.
I've done so many Grass Valley edits where I had to have every piece of B-roll picked and time-coded and well in advance, and giant bins of tapes. And actually, my garage still has 4 bins of tapes from my career.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll see a 3/4 machine again in my life. Okay. Well,
yeah.
It's there.
I did all my stuff, on depending whatever kind of tape I could get, whatever kind of camera I could get. A lot of VHS, but some other kinds of tape, like 3/4, all that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. You pour your heart and soul into this, and then you go into the edit bay, and you must be able to feel this pain. You go to edit, you set your edit points, and because it's a mechanical machine, it slides, and you're like, no, and so you set it with the slide accounted for, and it doesn't slide, and you're like, oh, sweet Jesus, this is gonna kill me.
I mean, I'll tell you some nightmare. I remember interviewing Whitney Houston on a red carpet, Vanity Fair Oscar party many years back. And she rolled up. She was an unexpected guest. And we hit record and started the interview. But you need like 6 seconds of pre-roll so that it can get to speed for your edit.
Yes.
So we missed the beginning of the bite, which was like the why are you here? Doesn't matter what it was. But like, oh, yeah. The things that kids today don't need to worry about.
Yeah. It's great. But it does open up the ability to create a lot of things and have people on. Are there any kind of strategic thoughts on, having, I guess I would say something like, having a main character have a significant food allergy, and have that not be part of the story, but not part of the story. Like, oh shit, this burrito has beans in it, I'm going to be down the next 8 hours. Is that something that you think you see in the future? Is that something you guys are interested in trying to implement?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, the last time a main character had an allergy was we're talking about Peter Rabbit, the Sony movie, which caused a fervor because there was a food fight scene, and the whole idea was let's use food allergies as a weapon. So I would love to see a main character with an allergy where it's not seen as a
weapon,
a stigma, a weapon, or a punchline,
right?
Where it's just something else to do. Now the problem is, of course, if you are a good main character, good charismatic protagonist, and you just need to not have, peanuts or whatever, does it become like a James Bond thing where you're like shaking that sort of, that's my thing. It's a one line in a movie and then I move on with it. Like, I can't eat that.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if they're doing it right and they're a hero, you're not going to hear about it too often. But I am working on an animated short with some buddies of mine from Nickelodeon that worked on Little Bill with me way back in the day. We got pitched a short film from a student at University of Miami who grew up with severe food allergies and, sat at that no nut table in school. And she herself was a little Black girl. She's now a young Black woman feeling completely alone and different. You're like, all right, I love this sort of, again, it's just a short one-off, but it's a story of acceptance told personally. That's my goal, to do more, protagonist stories. And again, to just take the stigma away.
Again, I went down the wrong road, and I was thinking about a couple of things, but specifically in Parasite. I don't know if you saw Parasite, the movie, but they shave peach fuzz and they blow it onto the person who's got the peach allergy, and
Yep.
use it as a way to undermine their livelihood and everything.
I mean, The Boys season 2. I mean, major spoiler alert. So if you haven't watched The Boys season 2, turn off this podcast. They use almond joy as a weapon because one of the superheroes has an almond allergy.
Yeah,
and it ends with him in an ICU. Spoiler alert again.
Yeah.
Other spoiler: season 2 wasn't very good. Deal with it. But again, now you're talking about the sort of the dark side of food allergy, which I would love to find a character's about to eat something and then a friend is like, no, because like it's a good moment, not a negative moment. But
yeah,
we'll get there.
I thought of another editing thing or storyline thing that really bugs me, and it made me basically. I don't like J.J. Abrams films because of it. I hold it against him to this day. I know his films are good. I'm trying to get over it, but it was so egregious. I was like, that's it, done, never watching anything he does. And so it was in Alias towards the end. I don't know if you saw Alias, but there was this giant water balloon type thing, huge, enormous water balloon. It's like in this hangar, and it breaks. And so the water just comes flooding out. And then the Alias chick, right, she's running down, and she gets down the hallway ahead of her boyfriend, and they have to do the moment at the window, and the water comes flooding in, and it drowns him. This balloon was smaller than the room it was in. How on earth did it flood all these? Like, they could have had him electrocuted or something, but they chose to have him drown because there was so much water. And I'm like, there's just not enough water to do that. Yeah, there would have been a mess throughout the warehouse and the factory or whatever, but there was never going to drown anybody unless they passed out in it was just.
Pete, I'm very sorry to hear that a TV show from 15 years ago.
Yeah,
it still bothers you to this day.
It does. It bugs me. All right, so enough about that. Let's plug everything and wrap this thing up. Tell everybody where they can go to get all of the stuff about Living Teal.
Sure. So there's 2 main websites to go to. The main one is www.foodallergy.org, which is your one-stop hub for all things food allergies. We've got resources there, emergency action plans, community reach out, all that sort of stuff. The other place to go if you just want the sort of lifestyle content is www.livingtealchannel.com, which is actually just a friendly URL that drives you right back to foodallergy.org. But it's where all of our shows are. In fact, we dropped a new episode today of Teal Holidays with Heather, which is the best episode yet. I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Christmas tips done with a little John Oliver style.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, and I watched it. And I mean, I was going to tell you did a good job, but you know that. I mean, it was a quality thing, and you would never. It's dumb to even say this. You would never know you weren't watching like a network thing because you guys do network great things. It's just now you get to watch it in this very specific things. If nobody else tells you and the crew today, thanks for what you're doing because it's going to save a life. It's going to make living those lives easier. And, it's such a minor thing that we can all account for. And it's fun to cook in a new way. It's fun to cook a recipe for somebody like, hey, I made this. I know you have this allergy and no one's even going to care except for I made it for you special. And just to have that as a gift that you can give to someone else, I think that's marvelous, man. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking all that time to make this cause matter because it does.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And B, I think it's a beautiful idea for the holidays, specifically if you know someone that can't eat X, Y, or Z, make them something special because nothing will make you feel more whole than that feeling of giving someone a delicious piece of nutritious whatever, cake or something savory. So I'm all. That's a great idea. We might take that, Pete, and put that on social media.
I love it. Yeah, do it. It's a great gift to give somebody. All right, so www.foodallergy.org. Everybody, look in the show notes. I'll have all that stuff in here. Jonathan Kane, thank you so much for coming on. Stand by. I'm going to sign.